Peace, blessings, and elevation. We will bring you inspiring stories, expert insight, and practical tools and information to support you. Stereotypes and embracing our authentic selves, we can pave the way for a brighter future for ourselves and our children. Power, heal, and support fathers and men on their journey. I'm your host, Kelly Little, aka the Village King. Welcome to the Father's Haven. Peace, power, and blessings, and welcome to another episode of the Father's Haven podcast, where today we have a special guest coming from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. In the building is Derek Miller, male engagement specialist. Welcome, Derek, and please give the audience a quick overview of who you are, what you do, and the impact that you have in the fatherhood space.
Awesome. Yeah. So first, I want to say thank you guys for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here to speak with you guys about a topic that I'm very passionate about. Fatherhood, male engagement is something that is near and dear to my heart simply because I grew up without a father in the home, and you know, although me and my father have a great relationship today, I talk to him every day. He has the utmost respect for me, and I do for him. I realized the impact that not only I had with not having my father there, but the impact that other kids have by not having their father in their life. So, once again, I want to give you your honor and just appreciation to you for having me on to speak about something that I'm so passionate about. But yes, I am Derek Miller, born and raised from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I have a family of 5. It's me, my beautiful wife, and I have 3 kids. My twins are 4. My oldest is 6. And that's just pretty much it. I'm a man of God. I love my faith. I love my higher being and my creator, and that's pretty much it. I try to do as much as I can and impact as many people as I can while I'm operating in that dash. I got my born date and I'm in that dash right now. So while I'm operating in that dash, I just try to influence, impact, and just touch as many people as I can.
So thanks for sharing that, Derek. Tell us a little bit about who you work for, what you do with them, and how it shifts the energy of the atmosphere where you're working in.
Awesome. So I work for Family Services in Forsyth County. And that's our umbrella company, but up under Family Services, we work for the Head Start program. And in the Head Start program, we service families who are at or below the poverty line. And for those who don't know about Head Start, we've been around for 60 years with the same mission, serving people who are the most vulnerable in our city due to finances and economics. So yes, I am the male engagement specialist at the Head Start department in Forsyth County. This year, we started a group called Mindful Men. This is our logo in the background, and this is our logo on our shirt. But we started a men engagement program, a men engagement initiative called Mindful Men. And in this group, we try to provide a safe space for men to come and talk to other men, for men to get encouraged, for men to get resources and education and tools that'll help them become more engaged in their child's academic career and success and journey. But also, we want to help men to become better men, better fathers, better spouses, and overall better role models in our community.
Look, you talked about becoming better resources, better role models, developing men. So in that head start space, and then in Winston-Salem, tell us how your performance or your passion around engaging and mobilizing men has thus transferred over to how you shift the Head Start program?
Awesome, great question. So before I got to the space, as I mentioned before, there was no initiative that was started in family services. There was only a men's group and a partnering organization called Smart Start. However, in family services, we have been able to transform participation, involvement, engagement tenfold. Last year, we had maybe one or two guys that were actively engaged in the classroom. This year, we have over 5 men who are in these classrooms day in, day out, reading to these kids, helping teachers with transitions on the playground. And what I also do around the county is really advocate about the importance of having men in this early childhood education space, simply because there's not a lot of men in these classrooms, in these facilities, in these environments. So when you really implant a man into that room, it really changes the dynamic, it changes the aura, it really changes the experience, not only for the children, but for also the teachers and that father. So what we are pushing and advocating for is getting dads in these classrooms so that way they can help with the transformation of self-identity, with the transformation of learning, the transformation of really embracing dads in this early childhood education, because we only have 3% of men that occupy these spaces. So 97 and 98% of women are predominantly in these spaces where men are most needed and most really appreciated. So for me and in our agency, I've been able to increase fatherhood participation, and that's coming out to our meetings, coming out to our activities, over 400%. I've been able to increase our male engagement in the classrooms over 500%. And also, what I think I am also doing is helping transform the perspective of our teachers, of our admin, of our leadership, of why it's so important to have men in these spaces, men in these classrooms, and men actively engaging in our Head Start facilities.
But you unpackaged a lot there. And so what I would kind of reorient us to, because I like where you were going, is as we often talk about the presence or men being present, it's a difference between being present and having presence,
Right.
which the presence speaks to activity and engagement and interconnectedness. So for you, when you see men not only show up in a space, you said it changes the atmosphere. What happens when men begin to become more involved in Head Start programming or your activation of the males who you communicate with, where you've changed and shifted the participation by 400%? How did that translate into impacting outcomes and experiences of the young people, the staff, and the Head Start community?
Great question. So in the beginning, when I first got into this space, I was introduced to Head Start because I was in my kids' classroom. So let me start there when I talk about the impact. What I realized by going into my kids' classroom, I taught Spanish to my preschool, my oldest child's preschool class, and by being in that room, I want to realize the influence and the impact that it had in my child's life, but more importantly, I noticed the impact and influence that it had in other children's life. And I think that same course of action is played out for the fathers who are also engaged in our program. I had one father who's a small business owner, and for a long time, his main priority was to get revenue generated through his business. And a lot of his day was spent with getting the next client, getting the next sale, so on and so forth. However, when I introduced him to our men's program, Mindful Men, but I also introduced him to our Men in the Classroom initiative, he realized that his child really needed him in the classroom. His teachers were trying to put his child on a behavior plan, and the experiences that his teachers was having with his child was not the experience that he was having at home. So he made it in his mind to say, let me go in the class and let me see how she's acting in the classroom. He noticed how excited she was. He noticed the other kids in the classroom that really appreciate him coming and reading to the classroom. And that alone, it helped him internally. It helped him mentally, because he was having, it been some days he'll come and read to some of the kids in our classroom and he might not be having the best day, but getting embraced, getting the love and the attention that he received from the kids in the classroom, it melted all of his troubles away. And it really impacted and helped him mentally, but he was now at a place where he saw the impact that they had on his child. She no longer needed that behavior plan. She was doing better in school. And then also he realized the impact and the influence that it had on other children, because now they're looking for him when he come in the classroom. Now they are excited to see him, and so are the teachers. So initially the impact is more internal, but as you can see, day in, day out, get into these classrooms, those kids and the influence that it has on them. And then for the men, the influence that it has on their family. That same gentleman I just mentioned, his wife noticed something different about him. His other kids noticed something different about him. And at that point, it started to improve and started to develop the at-home atmosphere to where now everybody is leaving happier because daddy is able to operate at a different level.
So it sounds like what you're saying to me is that his involvement at school not only shifted how his daughter was performing at Head Start, what the teachers were seeing from her at Head Start, her socialization and socialization skills was shifted as a result of him becoming more involved. But
Absolutely.
then in turn, what was reciprocated for him was it brought the family closer together, and it shifted the family dynamics at home as well. And when you say that, my first question is if these are some of the experiences that we know are a benefit to activating men in not only Head Start, but the Healthy Start, Smart Start,
Right.
School systems,
Right.
because it creates balance and it increases the perspectives that exist. But I say all that to say this: if we know that this is the result in a social return on investment and return on investment of activating men, what are some of the barriers to activating men so that we have more outcomes and experiences that are positive, like you just shared?
Right. So I think the very first barrier is trying to get over the stigma or the perspectives and opinions of men being in classrooms with 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and sometimes even 0 to 5-year-olds. Men are on guard and protective of engaging in these environments because they don't want to go into an environment where they feel like they're not welcome. So if leadership, teachers, the community is not receptive and welcoming of men in these environments, they're not going to engage. They're going to drop their kids off and they're going to keep moving. As I just mentioned, 97% of early childhood education is women. And if these women are not as responsive, receptive, welcoming to having men come into their classroom environment, if they don't welcome that, then the men are not gonna come. One. And then two, when I look at it from a business standpoint, as far as compensation, like if I wanted to incentivize a man by coming into the classroom through compensation, the career of having a man in early childhood education might not be as lucrative for that traditional role of a man, with his, providing financially for the home, so on and so forth. So a lot of men in education alone will tell you that they had to work 2, sometimes even 3 jobs just to maintain. And that's not just a issue for men, it's for women also. So I say that to say these barriers are real, and they kind of make it resistant, or make the hesitation more dominant for men not to want to come in these environments. However, aside of the compensation piece, I really think that men need to feel welcome, wanted in these spaces, but also men also need some direction, because a lot of men are not versed in these atmospheres where there's a lot of children involved. You know what I mean? So if they're coming into the classroom, they're looking for something to do, they need some direction. Hey, Dad, you mind reading a book at circle time for 10 minutes? Or, hey, Dad, you mind helping us clean up after we do breakfast, to transition from breakfast to circle time, so on and so forth. So I see those as a few barriers. The friendliness of welcoming fathers into the atmosphere and the environment, the compensation for keeping fathers engaged on a routine and continual basis, but also the direction. Having fathers with specific directions when they're in that space, if they don't know their left from their right, guide them along the way to help them kind of like be more comfortable and be more receptive to the little kids' environment, the little kiddos.
Look, love it, love it, love it. So as we unpackage this, right, you talked about stereotypes. In my mind, I'm thinking stereotypes, misnomers, all those things that we attribute to what men are supposed to do. And you increase participation by 400%. So what are some creative ways that you can mobilize the activity of the men who don't work for Head Start,
Uh-huh.
but they're a father in Head Start?
Uh-huh.
How can we help bring them into the classroom, inspire kids, but be a asset and a protective factor for the young people, which will
Uh-huh.
mitigate some of the 3% males that are in the school system or Head Start system?
Right. The first thing that comes to mind when I hear this question is relationships. You have to establish relationships with these fathers. So I am at drop off, pick up. I'm in the classrooms when dads are, in and out. At family services, I'm or at Head Start, and Head Start, I'm also a family advocate. So when they're doing enrollments, if a father is at those appointments, I'm in the hallways when they're going to my colleagues' offices trying to pull the dads. I've given all of our family advocates access and permission to send dads my way. Women, they typically do the paperwork, and the dads are there as a supportive role. Some dads come and do the paperwork on their own, but I make it a point to ask them to send those dads my way so I can increase my level of contact with all the fathers in our program. So for me, relationships is everything. And as I said, I'm born and raised in Winston-Salem, a native of the land, and I'm the exact same way. If I don't know you, it's a great chance that I'm not going to come to an event, especially if it's after school, or especially if it's taking time for me from work. So that's one creative thing, or just kind of like a best practice thing that we try to implement in our programs is increasing our level of contact and communication with the dads. But then two, I'm a cook. I have my own catering company, so I try to entice them with certain activities that I think will bring the dads out. So we might have a chicken and ribs, or we might have a cook-off, or we might have what we call men's giving. It's a playoff of friends giving, but it's an opportunity for men to come together and fellowship over food during the holidays where, you know, perspectives for men might look different from perspectives from women. When these holidays come around, we see dollars going out the door. When the women want to do decorations and presents and all that stuff. So I created a space for men to come and talk to each other. Hey brother, how you doing? I know them pockets hurting, but guess what? It's gonna create them memories, and we're gonna look back on these photos, and we're gonna say, that was a great time that we had. So yeah, we try to have marketing material that is geared towards men. Fathers want it here, or father survey. We want to hear from dads type deal. We just went to Top Golf with our partnering organization, Smart Start. We just went to Top Golf with them. So we just had a fishing extravaganza. So there's a number of different activities that we try to kind of tailor around things that we think men like. But also we have surveys and we have data that we collect from the men who participate to say, hey, what is something else that you might want to do that we may have not thought of? We had actually one of the dads in our program had thought of doing a chocolates with dad event. And that was actually the most successful event that we had the entire year. And it was just something as simple as getting melted chocolate, dipping apples and pretzels into the chocolate and just eating them with your kids. The kids was able to get chocolate all over them. The dads loved it because it was around Valentine's Day. So it was like a little chocolate fun love thing. Dads were bringing their daughters, men were bringing their sons. It was a beautiful moment. It was a beautiful time. And we try to get feedback from our dads and try to have dad specific and activities that are tailored towards our dad's interests.
So here's what I love. Because and I'm gonna throw one more thing in there that you mentioned earlier that ties right up in this is in my mind, I think mic'd up, but it's men in classroom, right?
Yeah.
So that's a non-traditional way to get
Sure.
them involved, get them
Sure.
engaged. And everything you just mentioned moved us beyond the realm of the traditional daddy-daughter dance and dads and donuts,
Absolutely.
right? And
Absolutely.
and activating the creativity and innovativeness of leaders like you, and then the fathers eliciting their information, finding out what they would like to see happen, how they like to be involved. Because let's be honest, some of our dads might be carpenters. So some issues or challenges that may be an issue for the Head Start, not
Right.
only can dad and dads help with that, they also can do so by finding a way to activate the young people and their energy to get a teachable moment and an experience
Absolutely.
just by being open to partnering with the fathers.
Absolutely.
So so now I'm gonna have to dig deep now. So as you
Let's have
share
it.
some of this, I want you to think of a time when you activated your dad's strength for the betterment of your child or children, or for the young people whom you also serve as a father, maybe not biological father in that role, but in that role as a community father or adoptive father to the kids who you are charged to be responsible for.
When you say dad strength, you mean like when I came into or when I've activated
A
my
powerful moment
yeah,
of what this definition of dad or father
being a
is,
dad
which
is
is
yeah, yeah,
advice.
yeah,
Maybe it was just being supportive of. like your daughters at one of their events,
Yeah.
but a really proud moment?
I think it was when I volunteered to teach uh, Spanish. Well, no,
I
I
like
have two
that.
moments. I got two moments. I got
Give
two
me two.
moments.
Give me both of them.
The first time I really activated my dad's strength was when I made the decision to be a stay-at-home dad and really raise and really be at home with three boys under three. So we had everybody in diapers at one time. I had three cribs. Yeah, putting them cribs together, but really being at home and really occupying that space of an untraditional man. That was that was ooh.
I bet it was a lot, but look, and it's funny because often the term would be non-traditional male experience, but in reality, the truth is we 100% divine masculine energy and 100% divine feminine energy, and is using the appropriate tools for a situation to make sure we optimize the experiences for our children, our child, or those who we are charged with ensuring that they have the optimal environment for their development. And so
Right,
I even
right.
watched your face started glowing when you got into that example,
Boy,
right?
I'm telling you. I feel like I really activated my dash from a number of different levels, and one because I had no example of what I was doing. I know how to go out here and get money, get a job, and be a financial provider for my family. I've seen that time and time again. I've had examples of that. I had no example of what it was like to be a stay-at-home dad, cook, clean, take care of the kids, three kids at one time. And for me, that was like a really welcome to fatherhood moment, but also like a badge of honor because I realized, like, brother, you are doing something that you have never seen done before. And a lot of men, my father included, level of respect increased for me when I took that. Because mind you, I also was doing this with a master's degree. So when you talk about the mental toughness that I had, or just the self-worth that I had to continue to preach to myself day in and day out, you're doing this for a purpose. You're doing this for a purpose. You're doing this for a purpose. That was some serious level of activation. But then my second opportunity was doing Spanish in my son's classroom for sure. Because in that role, I realized it was beyond me. You know what I mean? I had kids who didn't have fathers at home, coming up to me, listening to me, hugging me, embracing me because they don't have an outlet of masculine energy, of testosterone. You know what I mean? And when I was able to occupy that role in that space, I understood that, bro, this is bigger than, just me and my kids, but you've been called to show up for your community. And I seen a response from the teachers, and I just seen after so long, the teachers would be like, "Hey, Mr. Derrick, or hey, Mr. Miller, can you go talk to such and such? He's not having a good day." And I really became like the uncle of the classroom. I told the kids I can't be a dad, you know what I mean? Because I don't want my kids. No, I reserved that honor and that level of pedigree for my children. But I can be your uncle, you know what I mean? And I can, help you out along the way. And I can give you that man energy that you might be yearning for, you might not be receiving, that you just need for guidance and direction. So those two experiences was really a level of activating that dash strength that you put.
So here's another part to that, right? When you think about reflection,
Yeah.
And as we reflect on both those two examples, the one being a dad who's at home, 3 kids, moving beyond just protector and disciplinarian to nurturer,
Yeah.
to educator,
Yeah.
to supporter, to comprehensively serving your children and family in a way that was kind of non-traditional. But then the second part to it is that it gives you a different perspective on all the things that women juggle when they're a stay-at-home mom and what they sacrifice for the family. And then
Absolutely.
and then the second part, activating a different language for young people, but at the same time helping the parent or father in this instance to elevate their skill set and dexterity in a specific uh, language that they hadn't kind of been exposed to. Also builds a level of confidence.
Absolutely.
It helps you to lean into some fears that you may have had.
Absolutely.
So, what are some of the conversations from the men who actually was, for lack of better words, brought into this space of uh, learning a new foreign language and appreciating what you're teaching their sons or daughters in that example?
Yeah.
What did they say to you?
Well, they first started off by saying, "I don't know how you do it," and I'm like, "Man, we all have that in us." You know what I mean? And I just want to go back to, you hit the nail on the head, man. It gave me a different perspective, a different level of respect for the women who do it day in and day out. And I also got to a point where now I'm having conversations and being able to speak to both sides of the spectrum. I'm able to speak to men who are breadwinners who are expecting their wife to do X, Y, and Z just because they home with the kids. And I'm letting them like, wait a minute, brother. Because it ain't easy at home with them kids. And we know sometimes it ain't the message, but it's the messenger, right? And I'm not taking credit that it's me, but I definitely think that it's God who works through me to be able to communicate to a deeper level or a depth of these men and let them know, like, wait a minute. Sometimes our expectations might be unrealistic simply because we provide a financial responsibility for the home. You know what I mean? It's a lot going on in that house while we're not there. So yeah, if the dish is not clean or food not made, can we pick up a box of chicken on the way home so that way we can help the environment when we get there instead of expecting? You know what I mean? But I can also identify with that man who want to be the breadwinner, who want to provide X, Y, and Z. But it's just about accountability, but it's just about responsibility. You know what I mean? If you are going and you are providing a financial responsibility for the family, then it's, don't just lay there. Don't just stay there. You know what I mean? Like, yes, the finances are great and appreciated. However, we also need you to show up at home. And then I find myself in conversations with women who are at home and being able to relate to them because I was there and I am there in some situations supporting that person who is going to provide financial responsibilities. And when they go on, on a perspective that says, oh, all he do is this or all he do is that, and he don't it's like, wait a minute now, because it's hard out here for a man to try to provide those things for you. So if we can understand just the dynamic and the dilemma that each perspective is going through, I definitely think it makes room for a holistic family. However, to answer your question about the conversation that I have with men, I think a lot of the conversation that I have with men is around like inspiration. Like, bro, I don't see how you can do it, but they also want to know, like, bro, how can I do it? How can I get involved? How can I be more? And I think the men, they are able to identify with my authenticity on me really trying to help men be better men. You know what I mean? We don't really have a lot of some men don't have a lot of examples of what a good man is. You know what I mean? Some men have a lot of different perspectives on what they think qualifies as a good man, but what their spouse or their significant other might qualify or might think is a characteristic of a good man. So a lot of the men are pretty inspired by, like, bro, I want to do that, man. I want to get into these classrooms. And honestly, I'm batting 100. When these men get into these classrooms, it changes their lives. When they get that embracement and that love by a kid who don't know them from Adam and Eve, and they get hugged and they get appreciated and they get that value, it take them back to that little kid on the playground who just want to be told you're doing a good job. It take them back to that little boy on the football field who just want to be told that was a good tackle. You know what I mean? It fills a void for them that most men don't receive, and they get them hooked, and they don't want to leave. They want to continue to come back. So a lot of the conversations I have are just about inspiration. Like, how can I do it? How can I juggle this? And that's just my responsibility to make time, make space, and make opportunities for them to do.
Look, you said a whole word, particularly as you was landing the plane, affirmations
Yeah.
and affirming, really, right?
Yeah.
Great job, son. Young lady, you look amazing today.
Yeah.
I love your energy and how you showing up in the classroom.
Yeah.
Ooh, it was nice for you to pick that up for Nancy or Mike. Like,
Yeah.
as fathers, that's one of our, you went to the cloth, and so you being a God-fearing man, we can go back to Jacob and his role as affirming and speaking life into his children. That's
Yeah.
one of the charges that were given to men, right? And so as I say that, and you gave some brilliant examples earlier, I would ask that you tell us about a powerful moment or success story that affirmed the importance of this work that you do every day.
So one big success story I have is one of the men. I spoke about him earlier, but I'm gonna elaborate more. One of the men who was in our program, like I said, small business owner, and his perspective, he come from a culture and just a background where a man who don't work don't eat, and his whole mindset and mantra was provide, 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 but in a financial way, not so much as a presence way, because he didn't see that growing up. You know what I mean? And the biggest success story that I've had so far was that dad realizing, you know what, finances isn't everything.
Mm.
I have an opportunity to show up in my daughter's life in a way that I didn't receive growing up. And I want to lean more into that. And that dad, he did. He started sponsoring events for our program. He started volunteering at other programs. He started volunteering at other schools. He started volunteering more in the community, getting into the eyes and at tables with representatives of our counties and cities, and really engrossing himself in the community. And we applied for him to win Father of the Year award for the North Carolina Head Start Association, and he won.
Wow.
He won the Father of the Year award, and I'm. Give me a second. I gotta calm down a little bit. I'm getting goosebumps. But when he won the award, he said, "I ain't never won nothing like this before, bro." And I just felt his level of just gratitude to be appreciated as a man, trying to be better than the example that he had, but not really having a roadmap. But just for me, man, in this line of work, the hardest thing we can try to do is change somebody's perspective on what they know, because all they know is what they know. You know what I mean? But when you got a guy who is like nah, let me dare to do something different, and then get to the finish line of the race and win an award like that on a statewide level, and just to see how happy he was and the level of confidence that you just seen come out of nowhere, to where he just got that pat on the back. Like I said, it was, man, for me. And then also in submitting his application, let me not, I'd be remiss if I don't say this. In submitting his application, he needed a letter of reference. One was from a professional, one was from a personal, and one was from somebody in our organization. And in the personal letter of reference, I asked his wife to write a letter of reference for him. And just to hear how that impact went home. I know the impact that it has in our classroom. To hear his wife's perspective on how being in our mindful men group is changed how he showed up as a husband, as a father, and how they are working together and at a different level in a different capacity. Man, it's kind of like if we just get one, I'm good. That was it for me, man. After that, I was like, you know what? If I don't do nothing else right, I thank God for this one success, this success story, this testimony, and that's been the biggest one so far. But other guys still show up in major way. But for the one who won the Father of the Year, very deserving of it, hardworking dad, trying to figure out his way, and to reach that level of happiness and gratitude for him, I just like, man, my work. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine.
Look, I want you to close this out
Okay.
with your why,
Yeah.
this fatherhood space, the male engagement, and the embracement to normalize fathers being all inclusive and being mind, body, spirit, and soul in many of the spaces where we don't exist. Why is that important to school systems? Why is that important to spaces where you don't see many males, like medical professions or in
Mm-hmm.
healthy starts and head starts?
Mm-hmm.
Close us out with that.
When I look, I'm not gonna go to the statistics of how men being involved in the child's life improve X, Y, and Z in the school system, so on and so forth. When I really look at the why, is these three or these four, five acronyms around my head. And when we talk about the one on the left, why is it important for men to show up and be better? And the name of our group is called Mindful Men. And we have to be mindful about our physical and mental health. We have to be intentional about getting to a place where we are achieving overall well-being, but then also getting to a place where we are improving not only our physical and mental health, but also the physical and mental health of those around us. And then as far as education, the books right here is, it speaks to education. When men get into these educational environments, statistics shows it changes the entire dynamic 10, 20 fold. So we as men have to be educationally inclined, intentional about being in these environments, so that way we can improve the success rates of not only just our child, but other children who don't have a father figure at home. And then up top, when we talk about the heart of the home, we know, I believe the heart of the home is in that mom, but I also believe the heart in the home is being at peace. And I feel like when you have a level of security and protection at home, we as men, we create an unpeaceful and an unprotected environment when we are not in our homes. So we as men have to try our best to create a level of peace and security in the homes of our children and in the homes of our family. And finances, the money sign. We as men have to understand that financial contribution isn't always you going to make money and get the next dollar, but finances can also be social capital. Finances can also be network, and finances can also be you putting your child in a position to where they are able to make more finances than you as a father. And that's both men and women. I'm a testament to it. Financially, I am trying to make sure that my kids have the infrastructure that they need to get out here and be more successful than I am. And lastly, the balancing beam. It's a legal balancing beam. We talk about criminal justice, so on and so forth. Not going to go down that rabbit hole. What I will say and what I will rest on, why I do this, is that we as men have to be mindful of how much we're spending time with things that do matter and things that don't matter. We have to value our families and our children more, but we also have to balance within. We have to be at a place to where we are at peace with ourselves, because you cannot show up for anybody else if you don't balance your internal peace. You cannot be the best person you could be for somebody else if you're not the best person for yourself. So balancing life, balancing relationships, balancing activities with things that matter and things that don't matter. Limit those interactions with things that don't matter and increase the interactions with things that do matter. Get into the gym, focus on your health, focus on your mind, focus on your spirit, focus on your family, so that way you can balance, create a better balance in that of it all. That's my why.
So y'all heard it. Look, as we run into this closure, tell them how they can connect with you. Tell them how they can follow you and support you.
We are Family Services and Head Start in Forsyth County. I'll give you my number, 336-960-5939. And my email address is dmiller, MILLER, at familyservices with the S, Forsyth.org. If you need help with creating, implementing, recruiting, retaining men in your family, your fatherhood program, I am here to assist, and I'm here available to help you out. And to anybody who is also on the same mission to try to help these fathers, I pray for you, and I pray that you don't give up hope, and I pray that you continue to fight the good fight, man. And once again, thank you, brother, for having me on. I definitely appreciate the time. Great conversation, man. Great conversation.
My pleasure. Great nuggets dropped tonight, today, this morning, depending on where you are and when you're watching this. All I'll say is make sure you find Derek Miller on LinkedIn and all those spaces he's just shared with you, and realize that some of the things that he talked about today, it's important to do focus groups, do surveys, connect with men and fathers, find out what they need when they're in your facility, when they're in your spaces, create environments where we normalize wellness, healing, connection, everything that men, women, and children lead. So thank you, Derek, for another dope episode of the Father's Haven podcast. And for the rest of y'all, I'm just going to send you with a salute sign, and we'll see you at the next episode of the Father's Haven. Peace, blessings, and elevation. Peace, blessings, and elevation. We will bring you inspiring stories, expert insight, and practical tools and information to support you stereotypes and embracing our authentic selves, we can pave the way for a brighter future for ourselves and our children. Empower, heal, and support fathers and men on their journey. I'm your host, Kelly Little, aka the Village King. Welcome to the Father's Haven.